So I put up a list of the principal functions that need to be accommodated in the jail and therefore would be discussed and figured out in the planning and design process. And I don't know if any of those are particularly interesting to you, but there are many, many functions, and because the jail is a facility that operates 24/7, it's sometimes called a total institution. It has to take care of all the needs of the people who are there. So in a way, it's almost like a little city. It's got a police force, and it's got, I don't have a farm, but it's got to produce or receive food, deal with laundry, all the kind of utilities and maintenance issues. It's got to meet all the needs of the people, so it deals with recreation and religious beliefs and haircuts and the contact with their families and their legal representation. So the list kind of goes on, and I've just sort of put the main categories up here, but just so that you understand that as you embark on this process, you have a lot to talk about and figure out how you're gonna handle it. So as you are making these decisions, I mentioned some of these things, but among the key decisions are how big are the housing units and what inmate classifications are we going to respond to? That could be security levels, but also just the need to separate people, even if they're of the same kind of general security level, because they may not be compatible. Obviously, you're going to separate men and women, but you have also to take into account many other kinds of categories. The way that the inmates will be supervised and the way that the jail will exert its control over them is an extremely interesting question for discussion. It used to be well understood, and then in the early 80s, people began to have new ideas about how one might do it. The old method, which was called indirect supervision, just had the officer in a glass bubble with electronic communications and door controls, and say over the intercom, inmate Jones, come out of your cell and go such and such or whatever. That approach has, let me say this carefully, there's another approach now that many jurisdictions are considering that's called direct supervision, and it really means direct face-to-face interaction between the correctional officer and the inmates. That means instead of being in a glass bubble, the officer is stationed inside the housing unit at a desk like this. I mean, the relationship literally might be like this or closer. I'm going to show you pictures that show these kinds of desks and the officers in them, with the inmates perhaps mingling around. We're talking about the general population inmates, the ones who are not providing a lot of problems or behavioral issues. We would also have some of the harder indirect supervision kinds of facilities for those who aren't getting with the program. But, and I'll show you also hybrids that kind of combine maybe the qualities of both. I already discussed unit management. We've talked a little bit about low and high rise. I've talked a little bit about this whole idea of a normalized looking environment, potentially reducing stress, getting some natural light in, some color. You're going to see a lot of examples and views of nature, the ability to look out and see something natural. I'm going to share the results of a little study that we did, a little funded research study incorporating views of nature into a jail with very positive effects for staff, actually. So I'm going to show you some pictures now organized into just these simple categories. We're going to look at probably most of the examples I brought, most of the pictures I had and had access to, were these low-rise jails, the horizontal jails, obviously generally in rural or suburban settings, and you'll see they're often arranged in linear patterns with long corridors. I'm going to show you a couple of mid-rise jails that are more typically on urban or urban edge sites that are more restricted. They're more compact. They could be as little as 2 stories, maybe with, that's a technicality, four floors high, two double stacks of housing units, as little as that. They could be taller. I didn't bring any truly high-rise examples, but really what you see as you stack them up is basically more and more floors that are kind of repetitive and the same. So I don't think that it matters all that much. And then I'm going to show you some lower security work and program oriented jails that would programmatically be more like your work center, but are designed a little differently. And I have a category called experiments. I only have one facility in it, but I just thought that it would be good to see if I was able to blow your minds a little bit, see how you respond to a prison that was built recently in Austria. Some of you may have seen it in the press, but it goes probably about as far as you can toward kind of normalizing a prison environment. And there's one other, though, that I could have put in the experiment, but actually is in the low-rise, and you'll see what I mean by that one when you get to it. I think I've got 5 examples here of the low-rise jails. I brought them just so you could see what some of the kind of configurations look like and some of the different variations on the kind of planning idea. This is actually a Navy brig that's in the southeastern United States, and it divides the functions into a whole line of housing units along here, and then the other support functions are along here. And then if you'll notice, there's actually a secure courtyard in between, which can be actually a very effective way of providing some visual relief and some access to light while maintaining security. I mean, people can actually get out in there and can move through there, but they're quite contained. This is what the plan looks like, and you're going to see a lot of different housing unit plans. Some I'm going to show you the plans, some I'm going to show you the pictures of them, but they always have a bunch of cells kind of around the perimeter and some day room space in the middle, and after that they vary. This one has some support spaces between 2 units that are shown here, and others take a different approach to that. A similarly linear plan, Lancaster County, which is Lincoln, Nebraska, 781 beds. Again, you've got the sort of split of the housing units along one